Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can all hear me. I have muted everyone's microphone and video since we've just found it to be easier that way. However, at the end of the webinar, you are welcome to chat or to enter any questions in the chat box up at your top right-hand corner, and we'll address them at the end. So welcome to our Wednesday webinar series. We are talking about embracing Generation Z and Millennials, and we're going to learn how Generation Zs are different than Millennials, and fun other recruitment and retention engagement strategies so you can retain these generations in your workplace. My name's Maureen Brackey. I'm the marketing manager with the University of Utah Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center, MEP for short. And I'm going to quickly introduce our guest speaker today. If we could go to the next slide. So our speaker today is Denise Ball. She's a workforce development specialist for ToolingU-SME, and they're an industry leader in manufacturing workforce education and development. She's served as a practitioner of best-in-class learning and development techniques for the manufacturing industry for over 25 years, and her extensive background also includes workforce development for customized training at Lakeland Community College in Ohio, and that's where she's still based. She's joining us today from Ohio. And for the past 6 years, she's guided the implementation of workforce education and skills training into corporations across the globe to help develop their workforce with success, as well as facilitated workshops on best practices and various webinars. Denise, it's all yours.
Thank you, Maureen. Well, welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be with you. And as Maureen said, I am actually out here in Cleveland, Ohio area. And I want to give you a little background, and then we're going to jump right into really talking about the Generation Zs and the Millennials, some similarities and definitely some differences. So really to help give you some strategies as you're working with these generations in the workplace. So just want to give you a little background. Definitely SME ToolingU, we partner with the Utah MEP. They are one of our premier partners, and you may know SME as Society of Manufacturing Engineers, been around for 80 years, promoting and supporting the advancement of manufacturing, not only through technology, but also promoting the workforces that we train. And we really do focus on that learning and development piece. So you probably have heard of our events like Rapid Tech, West Tech, publications, those type of things. But we also work with organizations like University of Utah MEP Center. We work with over 600 schools and technical schools. We work with thousands of companies, economic development, and other community-based organizations. So we're out there, we live, breathe, and sleep manufacturing. And just to give you a little background on myself, folks, I actually do come from manufacturing background. My husband owned a machine shop for several years, so you know who the free labor was on Saturday. It was me. So I do love manufacturing, and I always kind of chuckle with the topic we're going to talk about today, Millennials and Zs, because I have 5 children. 4 of them are Millennials, 1's a Z, so I love talking about this, and I kind of have some firsthand experience with this. So I kind of want to start with, well, you'll notice on the picture here, it is kind of a selfie. I didn't make a duck face. I just couldn't bring myself to do it, guys, but at least it is a selfie, which really does capture our generations that we're going to talk about today. So I have a little video for you to watch, and just to enjoy.
At your local coffee shop, sporting a burning facial hair. Somehow he believes, although he has no job, that by his 30s he will be a millionaire. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A. Gotta love millennial. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-A. Gotta love millennial. fashion world. But hopes to change the world while wearing yoga. Hands on with her dreams, knowledge of essential oil. Millennial, gotta love millennial. Millennial, gotta love millennial. 47 years old, trying to make it all their own. Maybe not by leaving your parents home, but maybe we're just wrong. Criticism isn't easy for their ears. They feel like they know most everything. But they grew up with undeserved confidence, 'cause they got trophies just for parties of praise. Millennial, gotta love millennial. Gotta love millennial. In a couple of years, we will have to pass the torch. In a couple of years, we will be in charge. Everyone will be our president. Millennial. Please pray for millennial.
So I want to thank Micah Taylor. Actually, that's a YouTube video that is excellent and just makes me chuckle. And interestingly enough, some of those things are true for Z's, and some of them are not, though. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I will mention the Participation Trophy Awards. Their finding is not necessarily true for your Z's as much as they were for millennials. But we're going to talk more about that in a moment. I'd like to read a quote with you before I head on into the next slide. So as you're looking at this black picture, just think about this quote. It says, "The world is passing through troublous times. The young people of today think nothing of them but themselves. They have no reverence for parents or old age. They are impatient of all restraints. They talk as if they know everything. And what passes for wisdom with us is foolishness with them. As for the girls, they are forward, immodest, and unladylike in speech, behavior, and dress." That was Peter the Hermit in 1274. So needless to say, what we're talking about today has been around for other generations. So let's talk about the session goals. So first of all, like Maureen said, we are going to have some question time at the end for questions. And also you'll have an opportunity to request a white paper that talks about the generations, especially the millennials. But today we're going to talk not only about millennials and Z's and their facts, but we're also going to discuss some of their common myths. And then identify the opportunity that manufacturing has in developing for the skills gaps that we're right now facing. So as I already read the quote to you, this is not news. Back in the New Yorker in 76, Time in 97, and then Time again in 2013 have all run covers that talk about the me generation. It's been used quite a bit and very true. So here we go with current statistics, and actually in 2013, the Boston Consulting Group reported that the top conditions for a manufacturer's competitiveness is actually access to a talented workforce, that is key to them. And then they gave some great statistics as of June 2017, over 419,000 manufacturing jobs remained unfulfilled. And we hear this every day with ToolingU-SME, of people trying to fill current job slots, that they just cannot find the folks that are out there. And this is so true. So let's talk about the Z's and millennials, because they are the ones that can actually help us fill this skills gap. If we can tap into them, figure out what their key characteristics are, and align those with some of our learning and development strategies, we will be able to attract them. But more importantly, folks, we need to retain them. Because what good is it going to be if you attract them and spend dollars and dollars attracting them, getting them onboarded, and then losing them shortly thereafter because of the misunderstanding that they bring to the workforce? So let me give you some facts regarding Z's in particular. Just kind of stew on this for a moment. 65% of the children right now in our primary schools today will likely work in roles that don't even currently exist. They're not even out there. So we're not only having a hard time filling the current job, but there's going to be job roles that we aren't even aware that actually exist because of the advancement of technology in manufacturing. And think about this, they're going to be the ones helping us to solve the problems that we actually don't know about yet. So this industry has been adjusting to millennials for the past 10 to 15 years, and now the Zs are here. So you've got the Zs, and they pretty much have been born, the common numbers out there are from 2000 on up. So right now we have 17 and 18-year-olds entering the workforce. That is our Zs, and it's only going to grow. Your millennials were from 1980 to 2000, roughly. And before that were your Xers. They started back in 1966 through the 1980s. And then your baby boomers were 1946 through 66. So you've got a lot of generations. Actually, never before in the workplace have you had so many generations working together. Some fields like paramedics, they're coming in contact even with the silent generation, which were before baby boomers. That's 5 generations in the workplace. So we really do need to figure them out. So what about these Zs? They're the always-on generation. They're hyper-connected. They thirst for instant gratification. They're very research-heavy, and make a mental note about that, because that is something you can leverage, that they are the ones going out there and they will find the answers because they really believe the answers are out there. And if anything, Google it. That's how they feel. So with the Zs and millennials, as I shared, I've got 4 millennials and 1 Z. I was out actually visiting in some schools, and I was talking to them, and the one told me the story of how they were doing interviews with these seniors. So here we got 17, 18-year-olds getting ready to interview for jobs with you, and they were talking to them and asking them questions. And one of the questions they asked was a little bit technical in nature, and the student was quiet. So the interviewer, the person I was talking to, said that they were puzzled. So they asked the student, do you know the answer? And the student replied, I do know the answer, but I'm not sure if you'll understand it if I were to tell it to you. The interviewer at that point said, the interview is over, and he stopped, and the student was flabbergasted. And they were like, well, what's the problem? And he said, interview's done. You can't say that in an interview. And this student was like, why? It's true. So he tells me this story. I'm flabbergasted. I was like, really? He says, yes. I happened to talk to another school doing the same type of mock interviews, and they told me a very similar story. So I was thinking as a parent, this is kind of odd. So I came home that week, asked my 17-year-old daughter, who wants to be an accountant, I said, so I have a question. And I tell her the story. And I said, if someone asked you in an interview and you didn't think they understood the answer, how would you answer? And she said the same thing. Mom, I don't know if I would share the answer if they're not going to understand it. It blew my mind, folks. I was like, oh my goodness, I raised you right. How could you say that? But it confirmed what I had heard about the Zs. So a few more facts. So here we've got the population of millennials, 75.4 million people. And the Zs are 74 million and growing. So this really is going to be our pool for the future pipeline and workforce. So what about these generations? The average owns 7.7 connected devices, and they use 3 of them per day. The millennials' attention span, 12 seconds. The Zs are 8 seconds. There was a study done recently that says they check their social media sometimes 100 times per day. Now keep in mind your Zs, this is the one-click, one-swipe generation. So now we have a generation that has an appetite and a behavior for multitasking. It's very obvious. And this is something within workforce that we're going to have to deal with this, because I know many shop floors, I know ones that I'm familiar with, they don't even allow your iPhone or your phone or device on the floor. So I think there's going to be a challenge going forward of how can we leverage this behavior for this one click, one swipe, so that instead of them checking their social media, they're now having connection to maybe a device at work that has work-related info on it, whether it's SOPs, work instructions. Maybe there's something else that we can have available on the shop floor that they can actually get information on. So there was a study done in 2016. 15% of 25 to 35-year-old millennials are living at home. Now, Zs, we know pretty much 99% are living at home because they're 17 and 18-year-olds. But this is interesting because this is actually 5% higher than Xers at the same age and 10% higher than baby boomers at the same age. And there's a lot of discussion out there of why, but it's an interesting statistic. Another one is why they buy homes. So with baby boomers, they bought homes because they wanted to start a family. Xers, because they wanted an investment. This one, I wish all of your microphones were on so you can pipe in. I would love to hear what you say. But for millennials, the number one reason they buy a house is a yard for the dog. I am not kidding you guys. This is out there. This was done. It's a statistic. They buy it for the dog. Better Homes and Garden recently did a survey on the Zs and asked them, and because they grew up watching HGTV, they actually are a little opposite of the generation before them. They want the big home, not like the tiny homes of the millennials. They want the big home, which is very typical. A lot of times, the generations, it shows that the ones previous, the next one is very different. So they're already finding that with the Zs. So millennials, they value experience over ownership, and Zs, they're leaning the other way. 78% would rather buy an experience, they say, millennials, and that's why you hear the death of retail. But like movies are up, camping, traveling, rock climbing, they're all about the experience. So think about that in the workplace. They're about the experience. So the challenge, we did a survey and we showed 78% agree millennials are important to the future, but less than half have a good understanding of this group. I actually think they should have put an 8-track on this, folks, not a cassette, because 8-track goes back even further than cassette. But this brings up a really good point. Bottom line, we all need a good understanding of the different generations, not just of the Zs and the millennials, but we need to train the Zs and millennials on the Xers and the baby boomers so that we can communicate well and leverage it in the workplace. So myths, we're going to talk about some of those myths. And really, they're just misunderstandings of some of the core characteristics of these two generations. So the one, they have no work ethic. Reality, they have a self-centered work ethic. These employees are dedicated to completing their task well, have not been raised in a way that demands them to look around and see what they should do next. Think about it, guys. These generations are both gamers. They are total gamers. So they're thinking about what's in front of them, the level they're on, and how to get through it as quick as possible to move on to the next level. They're not looking around to see what else needs to be done. They're trying to get through the level. It's an important thing to think about. Another one, they don't want to put in the hours to get ahead. That's not necessarily true. They're willing to put in the time. However, they're uninterested in space time. And this is important. So they're willing, sorry about that. They're willing to invest the time, but they see it as a commodity not to be wasted, where like our baby boomers, they really did invest time. Millennials and Zs, they see time as something that should not be wasted. So with that, one of the things you want to do is reward like small successes and then string them together for milestones. So think about that. Maybe make a note of how could we reward small successes? Because remember, millennials are the trophy participation generation, and string them together for milestones and that recognition, because it is important. Another myth, no respect for authority. That actually is not true. They have a great respect, but it's not just because. It must be earned. And when it's earned, it's given fiercely. Interestingly, for both of these generations, it's really bizarre, but they have found that they elevate friends to family status. Now, I don't know about you, but as an Xer, when I entered the workforce, I never dreamed I would have a family member or a friend working with me. And if they asked me if there was a job available, I'd be like, yeah, no job, sorry, we're not hiring. I didn't want to work with them. But now these newer generations, they do want to work with them. And one of the white papers that we have available at the end of the session talks about how companies have leveraged that with their referral programs, and people will stay instead of them jumping ship for a quarter an hour. If they have their friends working with them, they're more likely to stay. Another myth, they don't want to grow up. They really don't know how to grow up, especially your Z's. They're just learning. So we definitely want to give them more slack. But think about this. Millennials didn't have as much adversity as maybe the baby boomers and some of the Xers. Something else to think about. The Z's have no memory at all of 9/11. And that's a pretty interesting thing to think about. That really does impact it. So with them, we need to help them. We really do. We just need to help them grow. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can really help them grow up in this. So what are some of their key traits? Connections and experiences, workplace value, visibility. So they really thrive on connections, both generations. They want projects. They want to collaborate. Millennials will collaborate a little bit more than Z's. Z's tend to lean more towards the independent side, but they do want to work on projects. They want to be recognized for their efforts. A big part, now keep this in mind, this is the gamer and the Google generation. So when they want an answer, what do? They Google it, they go right to where the answer is found. So this is going to impact how they use the chain of command at work. Think about it. If they need an answer, they're more likely to go knock on the CEO's door if they believe he has the answer, and they will jump chain to do it. So what do we need? We need to train. We need to train on office etiquette. We need to train on generations so that Xer or baby boomer that's their supervisor doesn't get upset. They see it and they can coach it and train it. So think about it this way. They're great problem solvers because they're gamers. They figure out the best way. They redo levels. They go back and get the ammo that they need. So therefore, put them on your task force because they're going to try to figure out the quickest, best way to solve a problem. So what are some of their expectations? 72%, their ideal job should have an opportunity for career advancement. They want it. Their ideal job should allow them to learn new skills. Look at those statistics. Pretty powerful. So with those statistics, companies need to build high performers and future leaders by focusing on industry best practices to help millennials and now the Z's. And if you think about it, really all employees feel valued from the moment they walk in. And I'm going to tie that into how millennials and Z's are now impacting other generations. So how are we going to do it? Strong onboarding. So I don't know about you, but when I started in the workforce years ago, I'm an Xer, I said I would give it 66 minutes, 6 months. So that was what I said. I started a job, let's give it 6 months, see if it works out. I wanted to give it time. The millennials and Z's are 60 minutes. They make a decision within the first hour if they're going to be staying. So I guess my question to you is, how strong is your onboarding? What's your message when they show up on that first day of work? So here's some pointers. Definitely, because we know their key characteristics, they want to be involved, those type of things, share your mission and your vision with them. Relate it to community and environment things. If you're involved in your community, share that. They eat it up, they love it, they want to get involved. When you're onboarding them, think about the timing of it. Send a pre-text to them a few days ahead of time or the day before. Start them out at 10 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. when HR is going to maybe be putting out fires from the day before or the night before. So start them out at 10 a.m. The other recommendation is a Wednesday, actually, or Tuesday, at least a Tuesday, not a Monday. Monday, too many fires. And it's speaks loudly to them as they're waiting for someone to get around to help onboard them because they're just sitting around because people are putting out fires. So the other strong onboarding comment that we've gotten back is to give feedback. Ask people you recently hired in the last year to give you feedback on the onboarding so that you can improve it. Give gear, you know, the hard stuff, have it all ready. The hard and software, have it ready, have it loaded with anything they need to have on their boots. If they have PPE, whatever it is, have it ready to go with their name on it. And give them swag. That's a big one for Z's. Definitely, you want to give them things, whether it's a coffee mug, a shirt, whatever it is, to help them start identifying with the company. Both generations love that. So the other thing with them is clear training plans and career pathways. Document the expectations and the plans. You want to do short bursts of different learning methodologies. Remember, technology is their comfort zone. Use it to your benefit. So at ToolingU-SME, we are strong advocates of a worker qualification model. This is one of the best ways to have a clear career pathway for folks. So it holds everybody accountable. Your on-the-job training is standardized. As you can see, it talks about a candidate for qualification. You move into the knowledge and the skills, which, you know, it shows a computer there because we actually have quite a few online resources that help deliver the knowledge and the skills. Then you have that actual standard work training and evaluation. Then you have a job qualification evaluation. So this progression going from knowledge and skills to a structured, standardized on-the-job training system really is key to this. And you'll notice the little block below that the trainer credentialing, very important. And I'm going to mention that in a second. Your train the trainer is key to this. And in the end, you get that worker qualification standard. So you have very clear, communicated standards of what is needed. And this aligns with both Z's and millennials. And that's why apprenticeship has really taken off in this country and has really gained a lot of interest because it's laid out. Apprenticeship lays it out, whether it's a formalized apprenticeship program or one that's just internal. So succession and mentoring programs, which fit nicely into the career pathways, it needs to be strong. They did an engagement study that declared number one reason why this generation is quitting is because of their direct supervisor. They did not get along with them. Remember what I told you? That they elevate friends to family status. So they do care about those connections. So you really need to be thinking about a strong succession and mentoring program so that we can pass this knowledge down. All this knowledge that's been gained in the company over the years needs to be communicated well. So build strong trainers. You've got to be able to have a strong train-the-trainer program that gets what's in their head and in their hands out their mouths in a very logical way. So this is important to definitely have a strong train-the-trainer program. So one of the ways that we have found that millennials and Zs really respond is a flipped classroom. And when I'm talking about a flipped classroom, I'm really referring to giving them learning like online or in some form ahead of time before they actually get out to the shop, so that when they get out on the work floor, they actually are hearing the common terminology. They already are hitting the ground running, as they say. So it's called a flipped classroom when you give that information ahead of time and then immediately reinforce it out in the work area. So best practices, just to kind of recap: provide strong onboarding, build clear training plans and career pathways, implement succession and mentor programs, develop strong organizational trainers. Some final tips: don't generalize, especially with these generations. I've met millennials that are more like Xers. I've met some Zs that are old souls, as we say, and they're more like millennials or Xer. Communicate your corporate mission. Truly important. They really resonate with that. Show them their future with using strong career pathways. Provide continual learning opportunities, ongoing. Just don't onboard them. Continue that learning. Let them see how they're going to get the job that they want tomorrow. What steps do they need to take today to get that? That's why the ongoing learning is critical and key to their success. Go digital. Allow them to share their ideas and provide regular and immediate feedback. I want to share a few more tips with attracting these folks. Something to keep in mind. When it comes to your Zs, they get their news from Twitter. When it comes to attracting these folks, we all will talk about it. We sit around the water cooler saying we really need to attract the parents because they influence these generations. Think about this. Facebook is where all the moms are. If you want to get to these generations, these children that are 17, 18, and are coming into your manufacturing world, appeal to the moms, appeal to the parents, bring them in, show them the benefit package. Definitely advertise on Facebook, but no, you're not advertising to the children, you're advertising to the parents. So just keep that in mind. So definitely use online for applications if you aren't already, and to advertise, because again, they're a one swipe, one click generation. Don't make it difficult for them to fill out that application. I will tell you an interesting story I found out, that the Minnesota DOL lowered their working age so that they could do paid internships. This was just in the last year or two because they wanted to attract 16 and 17-year-olds and get them hooked on manufacturing. So they actually had to go back to the legislature and change the laws so that they could do paid internships with them. I found that very interesting. So bottom line, we really need to engage both of these generations. We need to draw them out so they can help us with innovation, with solving problems that we don't even know we have. We need to leverage their key characteristics so that you have a viable, sustainable, dependable workforce for tomorrow, because we depend on it. We really do. So I want to thank you for joining us. We do have a great white paper on millennials that you can contact either the MET Center or myself. My email is up there, and would love to know if there's any questions out there that we could answer.
All right. Thank you, Denise, so much. I don't see any questions yet. We'll just give it a 30 seconds or so to see if anybody has anything to ask. If not, please feel free to reach out to Denise or myself using the email address as provided. This webinar has been recorded, and we will post this on our MEP website as well.